Yes,
Thank
I'm
you,
visible.
Digvijay, for including me
Not
as
an issue
part of
about
this
yet.
IC, and thank you, AIS, for giving this opportunity. So, I'll be just talking about electrophysiological use in neuro-ophthalmology. So, I would just be taking you all through various cases which we commonly come across our day-to-day practice, and see how we can apply electrophysiology for the diagnosis as well as prognosis of these cases. So electrophysiology, basically we know that is of three different types that we regularly use: VER, visually evoked response, electroretinogram, and electrooculogram. The main objective of all of three of them is to have an analysis of functional of the neurovisual pathway. Among all three of them, it's the VER which we commonly use as a neuro-ophthalmologist in our day-to-day practice, with some amount of role of ERG. So this is a table which shows how different electrophysiology tests are used and what is their importance in the cases, and what kind of structure they assess. So, as I said, VER is the most important investigation that we use in our practice, and more than amplitude, it is the latency that we should be looking for, because it's more specific for neuro-ophthalmological disorders rather than the amplitude, which can be otherwise low in any other ophthalmic situation also. So this was a case one where a 32-year-old female complained of sudden loss of vision in right eye 4 days back. There was pain on ocular movement also, and best corrected visual acuity in right eye was 20/80, while in left eye it was normal. On examination, there was right RAPD, but fundus was absolutely unremarkable. So as we all know, pupil are very sensitive test for the diagnosis of optic nerve diseases. So we all know that there's something wrong with the optic nerve, and going ahead with the VER, we found that the latency of the right eye was increased. So this confirms the diagnosis of retrobulbar neuritis. Similarly, there was another case where a 31-year-old male complained with sudden diminution of vision in the right eye for 15 days, with mild ocular pain on eye movements, with mild headache on and off. The right eye vision was 1 by 60 with absolutely normal PR. The left eye vision was otherwise normal with except one line loss. The pupillary reaction, again right RAPD was present, and again anterior and posterior segment remarkable. So as we all can understand with the clinical picture that this is probably a case of optic nerve disorder, and considering the age and other clinical features, probably a case of again a retrobulbar neuritis. However, sometimes we may have the one eye presenting as retrobulbar neuritis, the other eye may also show some kind of increased latency on VER, which is suggestive of subclinical involvement of that eye. Patient was treated with IV dexamethasone for 3 days as a common practice in this institute, and we found that his VER improved gradually in both the eyes, but there is a possibility that VER improvement, as shown in AONTT trial, takes some time. So even after the recovery of vision, color vision, visual fields, the VER latency may remain abnormal in these patients for long time. So there was a study from this center where we have found that the VR latency not only is decreased in the involved eye, which is the optic nerve eye, but also in the cases of multiple sclerosis where the optic neuritis was not present. So it may be a sign of some subclinical involvement or demyelination going in visual pathway in cases of multiple sclerosis who do not present with frank optic neuritis. So that's a subtle sign of demyelination in these cases. So next case was a 30-year-old female who had progressive loss of vision. She had very poor vision in both eyes with both pupil reaction not at all reacting to light, and fundus was suggestive of atrophic papilledema. She was eventually diagnosed as a case of IH. Now we don't know whether we should go ahead and do an optic nerve sheath fenestration in such cases, or we should give patient a prognosis of a very bad prognosis regarding the visual improvement. So VR in these cases may sometimes help because if there is some kind of waveform pattern on the flash VR. So if you have a very poor visual acuity, a flash VR, doing a flash VR is a better choice than doing a pattern VR, because the pattern VR may show extinguished response in some cases, in such cases, while the flash VR may show some response, some kind of waveform in these cases. So if you have some kind of waveform present there, we may go ahead and do an ONSF. That's what we did in this cases. And we found that the visual acuity improved, not very remarkably, but up to 4/60 with a severely constricted visual field. And there was improvement in VER waveform as well. Now, there is another case of a 24-year-old male patient who was receiving ATT for past 3 months and had a visual acuity of 612 with both eye pupils not showing any abnormality. So we suspected that this probably is a case of ethambutol toxicity, went ahead and did VER, and we found that the VER was more severely affected than the vision, and the latency was quite significantly increased. So it just helps, not only helps in diagnosis or confirming the diagnosis of ethambutol toxicity. The study from this center has shown that around 14% of the patients may show some kind of loss of amplitude and increase in latency if they are on ATT for more than 3 months. So 14% of patients may show subclinical toxicity of due to ethambutol in cases of ATT. Recently, another study has been published from this center where around 40% of patients show more than 2 standard deviation of increase in latency, suggestive again of subclinical ethambutol toxicity. So even if the vision is good, even if the color vision is not affected, visual fields are normal, VR is one of the way to diagnose a subclinical toxicity in these patients, and these patients need regular follow-up, more frequent follow-ups to monitor for the development of the clinical toxicity in these cases. Sometimes it is complementary to OCT as well to diagnose the subclinical toxicity. Now, this was a case 5, which who was a 1-year-old child who had the history of development delay, and the mother wanted to know the prognosis. So the mother asked whether my child would see or not. In such cases, if we have flat VR, we may tell mother that the child may not be able to see. So it's one of the way to assess the visual potential in children who are non-cooperative. So it also helps in assessment of visual potential in opaque media. Then in non-organic visual loss, the VER may help in detecting some kind of functional visual loss. This was another case which we frequently see in our day-to-day practice, where a patient presented with poor vision, and on examination there was just a disc pallor that was present. So VER was not so helpful. We went and did ERG, and we found that his photopic ERGs, which is because of cone photoreceptors, was absolutely extinguished as compared to the scotopic ERG, which had a good waveform suggesting of the cone rod dystrophy. So in these cases where the full field ERG is not good enough, one may go ahead and do multifocal ERG. To conclude, the electrophysiology helps in diagnosis of the cases, also in diagnosing subclinical cases, differentiate retinal pathologies from optic nerve pathologies, also to differentiate organic from non-organic cause, and to determine the visual potential in certain patients. Thank you.